All right. All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our financial aid series. I'm Erin Mosley. I'm the 11th and 12th grade advisor at Mathis High School.
And I'm Nathan Schwausch. I'm the 11th and 12th grade advisor for Sinton High School.
All right, and today we're going to be continuing on discussing financial aid. Last time we covered creating your FSA ID. Today we're going to be actually diving into the FAFSA. So we're breaking up the FAFSA into two sections. Today we're going to be discussing the first few sections of the FAFSA, the demographic information sections. Next time we're going to be talking about the tax information. And since this is kind of an overview of the content that's covered in the FAFSA, we're not going to be going through step by step through your FAFSAs. This is just a little bit more of these are general things that you need to know when completing your FAFSA. And as a reminder, the FAFSA does not sign you up for loans, and many scholarships, even the ones that the university may give you, require the FAFSA regardless of financial aid. So please do your FAFSA. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So to start your FAFSA, you're going to want to go to fafsa.gov or studentaid.gov. These take you to the same place. They're the same site. And on here, you'll see this box, complete the FAFSA form. You're going to click start here. This is your first time creating your FAFSA. If you have created one before, or you're here to make a change or anything like that, you can go ahead and just go and log in. You're going to log in or start using your FSA ID. So this is what you created last time. This is your login information for your FAFSA. So please make sure that you have this saved somewhere. It's very important. Next, you're going to want to make sure that you are selecting that you're going to start the 2022-2023 FAFSA. So this is going to be for next year, the first year that you are in college. And you're going to be doing this every year. So make sure that you're choosing the correct FAFSA, or you might have to do it all over again. So as I said, the 2022-2023 FAFSA. The next little portion is going to ask you to create a save code. This is just 4 or 5 digits that you're going to remember. If you end up forgetting it, it's very easy to reset. So just go ahead and create one for right now. If you write it down, even better, but it's okay if you need to reset it later on. So this is the general layout of the FAFSA. You can see the sections up at the top. This may look a little bit different. This is a previous screenshot from one of the older years of FAFSA, but the FAFSA is still requiring the same information. So you can see the student tabs. We're going to cover student demographics, school selection, dependency status, and parent demographics today. So this is just kind of what it looks like. So the information that the FAFSA is going to be asking for student demographics is your address, your date of birth. Both of these may already be imported over from your FSA ID. If not, please enter them incorrectly. If you end up switching your birthday and like instead of 12, you put 21, that can cause major issues later on. So please be careful when you are entering in this information. It's going to ask you for the high school that you are attending. There is a search feature there. Please search and select your school. This allows your counselors and us advisors to actually be able to track your progress in your FAFSA. So please do that. It'll save everyone a whole lot of time. For male students, it is going to ask you if you are registered for the selective service. If you are, you can mark it as so. If you're not, say no, and it'll ask you to go ahead and ask if you want to register for it. Go ahead and say yes to this. It is unfortunate that this is still a part of the FAFSA. However, it is required in order to receive financial aid. This isn't signing you up for the military or anything like that. It's just another requirement. Finally, where it's going to start asking you about your college plans, what degree you are pursuing, will you have completed high school? It's going to ask you to select colleges you want to send your FAFSA to. These are going to be the colleges that you're interested in or that you're applying to already. And it's also going to ask you about work study. So work study is typically on-campus jobs that get priority for students that do have work study. Different schools handle them a little bit differently, but essentially you get to work on campus and you not only get your paycheck, but you also get a cut onto your tuition as well. So highly recommend work study jobs. So say yes to that question.
All right, after you have filled out the student demographic section, you'll come to the school selection portion of the FAFSA. This section is important because this is how you determine which schools you want to receive your FAFSA. Again, reminder, the schools are the ones that are going to be sending you the financial aid packages later this semester or in the spring. So make sure that you list every school here on your FAFSA that you have already applied to, that you're working on applying to, or that you think you may apply to in the future. Here you can list up to 10 different schools on the FAFSA. So much like Aaron was talking about with finding your high school for the student demographic section, you can search the different colleges that you are applying to or that you would like listed on your FAFSA through a search feature. You can do that through either the name of the school, the city and state that that school is located in, or if you know their federal school code, you can search them using that federal school code. With each school selection, you're also going to list what your housing plans are for that school. So for example, you can list that you're planning on staying on campus, off campus, or with a parent. Now, just because you can list 10 schools on your FAFSA does not mean that you are only limited to sending your FAFSA to 10 schools. If, say, you have more than 10 schools that you want to send your FAFSA to, what you can do is submit your FAFSA with the first 10 schools, let that FAFSA process and send to those schools. Then you would just need to log back in and make a FAFSA correction and select the other schools to send your FAFSA to so that it can then process that and send that to the other schools. The next step after you have selected the schools you want your FAFSA to be sent to is determining your dependency status. Now, what this means is whether you're going to be determined as a dependent student, meaning that you receive parental support and will need to then provide parental information on the FAFSA, or if you are an independent student. Now, an independent student would not require parental support and would thus not need to fill out the parent section of the FAFSA. So dependency status is determined based on your answers to the questions here that we see on the screen. So for example, will you be 24 or older by December 31st of the school year for which you're applying for financial aid? Do you have children who receive more than half of their support from you? Or at any time since the age of 13, were both of your parents deceased, or were you in foster care, or were you a ward or dependent of the court? So for example, an independent student may be a student who lives with someone like their grandparent, and that grandparent has full legal custody of that student. Now, just because you are 18 or older, that does not mean you are an independent student. In fact, you're still considered a dependent student for financial aid purposes until you are 24. So you're going to be using your parental information for each year you are completing the FAFSA if you are a dependent student. This is important because independent students do qualify for more financial aid since they do not have the assistance of their parents. Now, if you are a dependent student, what will happen after you complete these questions, if you're determined to be a dependent student, you'll need to then provide the parental tax information and demographic information. So here is what the parental demographic information is. So you'll need to list parent last name and first initial, the marital status of your parents. If your parents are married, you'll need to provide their marriage date. If your parents are divorced, you'll need to provide their divorce date, and so on and so forth. You'll need to provide their date of birth, their social security number, if they have a social security number. If a parent does not have a social security number, they can still complete this section of the FAFSA. They'll just need to enter all zeros for their social security number. And last but certainly not least, for the parent demographic information, we'll need to enter their household size. So that includes how many children, counting the student, are in the parent's home, and how many other people that your parents support live in your parents' home with you. So that could be someone like maybe a cousin who lives in the house with y'all, or grandparent or something like that, they provide full support for. All right, so that covers the parent and student demographic information for the FAFSA. So next time we will be jumping into the fun part, the financial part of the FAFSA. Now, a reminder that since we are filling out the 2022-2023 FAFSA, we will be using prior year tax returns. So for 22-23, that means you'll be using the 2020 tax returns. Make sure that you have that tax information for your parents and the student if the student worked and filed taxes in 2020, as well as the student FSA ID and parent FSA ID that we helped you create through the first video. All right. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week. Bye.
Bye, y'all.